Hi everybody, this is Joe Ramshaw.
And this is Sophie Ramshaw.
Welcome back to another thrilling episode of Joe and Sophie tell a tale. We'll try our best but we'll probably fail. So come with us cause we're about to set sail as Joe and Sophie tell a tale. Classic. Ah, well done. Okay, so what do we have on the cards today, Soph? What's today's topic?
Well, we're thinking a bit of Richard Laymon today.
Ooh, a very polarising figure in the horror community. A writer of, over 30 novels, I think?
I think it was 60.
60 novels?
60.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was about 60, I think he wrote.
Oh, okay, dear God.
Yeah, he's a man. He's a champ.
He is a champ. He's
Lad.
just pumping out the hits for many years. Well, first of all, let me ask you, what do you know about Richard Laymon? Have you read a lot of his books? Have you?
I've read definitely a few, more than any one author I have. Because I think, he was really awesome. And one thing about him is that you just read it and then suddenly you're halfway through, you don't even realize.
That's true, yeah. He's definitely a page turner.
Yeah, so I've read a good couple, but not all of them, because as I said, there were 60.
Yeah.
But definitely a few. And I know he's really good at horror. He's a man, and he's dead now.
Yeah, that's right. Died at the age of 54, I believe.
Early 2000s, I think?
I think it was in 2001, maybe, something like that. A little interesting fact for you. He actually died exactly 1 month after his 54th birthday. On Valentine's Day.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. So,
It would have been cool if it was on his actual birthday.
I know, that would have been cool, yeah.
That's how I want to go.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, just die eating tons of boothday cake or something, or choke on a candle.
Meant,
just die.
Kill myself.
Just
so
a
it's
natural,
all, easy. So,
just
nice. There's only one.
The symmetry,
symmetry
of nature of God's plan. I've also read quite a few Richard Laymon books as well. Can't really remember them all right now, but I remember, starting a bit of a love affair with Richard Laymon. I don't know if you'd call it that, but I do. Yeah. He'll always have a special. I think he would. Yeah. Or he'd be rolling around in his grave right now. But we'll see what happens. Okay. So quite a few years ago now, I read a book of Richard Laymon's called Alarums, and I really liked it. It's one of his stories that I think is probably. I mean, none of his books are really that well known, but I think of all of his books, that's probably one of the lesser known ones because it doesn't.
I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, it doesn't really have as many of the sort of hallmarks of his later stuff. It's sort of very simple and it's kind of just like a family drama type thing, but it ends up in a big sort of bloodbath at the end. And that's basically what Richard Laymon's known for, isn't he? Is just bloodbaths. Murder, lots of rape. Just so much rape.
A lot of creepy people.
Creepy people.
Creepy young men.
Yeah, exactly. And creepy old men.
Yeah.
And creepy in-between men. Yeah. Just everywhere. Men! Oh, what are you going to do? So, I thought we could start with talking about the Beast House series. So, the Beast House was a trilogy of books that Richard Laymon wrote, starting with his very first novel, which was published in 1980. And it was called The Cellar. Now, The Cellar, as I said, it was his first novel, but all of the stuff that made Laymon famous was in there. Extreme violence, all the kind of spookiness. There's a kind of a haunted house in there. And in this house, there's supposedly these horrible murders that occurred. No one knows the truth of what happened. Some people are like, oh, the crazy old lady that lived there butchered her whole family. And other people sort of tell this legend of the Beast, this creepy werewolf-like creature that basically has no hair and just runs around butchering and raping everyone inside this, whoever dares to go into this house. So obviously, because it's a Laymon novel, it turns out that the Beast is real. Basically, everyone gets either raped or murdered. And it's a pretty hard book to read. It's pretty disturbing. I mean, it's easy to read, like all of Laymon's stuff. The prose just kind of keeps going, and the pages just keep turning over without you even realizing it. But there's just lots of explicit sort of rape stuff in there, which is kind of hard to read if you're not used to that kind of thing.
If you are not a rapist.
If you're not a rapist,
If you are,
then
jail.
That's exactly. Yeah, and it's probably not that shocking to you, but it is quite shocking to read.
Pretty uncomfortable.
Yeah, but that's not to say that it's not an okay book. In doing some research for this show, I read that Stephen King in his book Dance Macabre, which is like a book about writing and about how to write and stuff, he kind of talks about haunted house stories, and he cites The Cellar by Richard Laymon as being one of the really worst examples of a haunted house story. He said, I think he called it, I wrote it down somewhere, he calls it an example of one of the less successful breed of haunted house stories.
Oh, damn.
I know, yeah, so
Throwing the shade from
pretty
Stephen King
stern words from the king.
Right.
But he then later kind of came around and became a fan of Richard Laymon, so much to the point that his testimonial is pretty much on the cover, or the back cover at least, of every single Richard Laymon book that you can find, where I think he says something along the lines of, if you've missed Raymond...
You've missed Raymond. If you've not seen Everyone Loves Raymond...
Where have you been? He says, if you've missed Laymon, you've missed a treat. So,
yeah,
you know...
Which is true.
Which is true. He is a treat.
Despite his creepiness, there are good books.
Yeah, exactly. What was the first Richard Laymon book that you read?
The first one I ever read was Funhouse.
Yep.
By Richard Laymon.
That's one of my favourites. Yep. By Richard Laymon, yeah.
Yeah, you made me read that. I think
Yeah.
I was in high school at the time, before I quit. And you were like, oh, Richard Laymon! You have to read this one. So I read it. And it was pretty good. What I liked about that one was it had, like, each chapter was the point of view of a different character.
Yeah.
So it wasn't, like, first person or anything. It was third person, but each chapter you saw the point of view of one specific character, and then at the end they kind of all culminated.
Yeah,
Culminated?
Yep, that is
All
a
right,
word. Yep.
good.
I'll go with that.
Yep.
Yeah, he's good at doing that. He's good at putting you firmly in the mindset of different characters, so that each character feels so real and they just jump off the page. And you kind of, like, when you finish the book, I always feel like, those characters are still out there, unless they've been killed at some point in the story, in which case they're not. But they always feel like real creations. Which, not a lot of highbrow literary writers can claim that,
character's always the most important bit.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that he excels at in every book, and that's why it can be so hard sometimes when he's, like, inflicting horrible torture and, mutilation on them. You're just like, I really like this guy, or I really like this woman, she seemed really cool, but now she's being beheaded.
She's dead now.
Yeah, I love Funland. That's one of my favourites, actually. It's just, like, classic... scenes and classic characters.
Yeah, it's really fun, really creepy, because hobos, I think, was the main thing in that one.
Yeah.
Was, like, creepy hobos.
Creepy hobos.
And, like, a group of, like, teenagers going around and, like, torturing them.
Yeah.
For being hobos.
Yeah, because it's all based on, like, a American boardwalk, like
like a beach kind of setting.
Yeah, like a kind of...
Like a rich kind of, like, little area.
Yeah, little sort of amusement park on the boardwalk, like a very kind of American setting, I'd say. Yeah, there's these kind of homeless vagrants who just populate the area.
Like stereotypical crazy crack addict ones.
Yeah, crazy, like, cracked lips and gummy eyes, and they're all crazy.
Definitely,
and like
lepers.
Yeah,
some kind of...
Definitely got something going on. Like, if you shook their hand, the hand would come off, like that kind of thing. And yeah, basically there's this group of teenagers who, because I think the homeless people are all called trolls throughout it.
Yeah.
So it almost gives it this kind of, like, I don't know, Knights of Camelot type feel to it, as if these teenagers are, like, the Knights of the Round Table. Ridding the land of these mythical monsters. When in reality they're just
torturing
homeless
poor
people. Homeless people, which is pretty horrible.
Yeah. But then, as per Richard Laymon's kind of usual thing, you'd think, oh, so it's the supposed good air quotes guys that are actually the bad guys. But then you kind of realize at the end, it's like, no, everyone's horrible, because the hobos are also terrible people.
Yeah, the hobos are definitely terrible people.
All of them are bad. So you can't get, like, all humans are just wrong.
Yeah, that's right.
In Richard Laymon's
That
eyes.
does seem to be the the major takeaway. It's just like, humans suck.
Like, you know what? I'm gonna kill a lot of hobos in my book, but the hobos are also gonna rape some people.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, there's gonna be some hobo rape. I actually love Funland. It's such a fun book. It's like, because there's this, there's constant references throughout it to, it's this horrible practice that some of the hobos or the trolls have, which is making people walk the house. So do you remember that?
Yeah, it's you used to walk around our house. like before school or something, you'd be like, "Oh, I'm going to make them walk the house." And you just said that like every day for like 3 weeks.
It was because it was like my favorite quote in the movie. There was like
Movie.
the head in the book. Sorry, it plays like a movie in my head at all times. But yeah, there's like this crazed the leader of the hobos, I think, whose name's Jasper, if I remember correctly. And he kind of owns one of the amusement parks, and I think it's called Funland, which is why the book is called Funland. So he owns this giant sort of scary house on the boardwalk in this amusement park area. I guess he's like rigged up the Funland house to be this kind of crazy torture dungeon rape house. I don't know. And
I don't know how much we're going to say rape in this.
It ends with our sort of heroes, which are some of the teenagers who are the troll hunters, so to speak. Not that they're exactly placed in a position of like, oh, they're these great people.
Yeah.
But they're still, you know, they have some redeeming qualities, some of them at least, and then some of them are downright horrible. But it's like anything where there's some of them feel like they're just there to scare away some of the hobos. Other ones are there because they have a natural bloodlust and that kind of thing. But anyway, they have to basically walk the house at the end of the novel. And I remember reading a quote from Richard Laymon years ago that said he always wanted to write a book that had a climax that went for 100 pages or over 100 pages.
You don't even realize when you're reading it.
You don't read it. You don't even know. I mean,
you don't even read it.
You don't even read it. And it's over. No, so you do read it.
Yeah.
It's 100 pages, all of them just walking the house.
Yeah.
So basically they get...
It's awesome.
It's cool, yeah. And they get stuck in there and basically they have to fend off against Jasper's, crazy hobo
gang,
minions.
Yeah.
And also, rigged
Weird
booby traps.
Stuff that's just in
There's a slide.
place.
There's
yeah.
a slide where like a knife
nails
comes
on it.
out. Yeah, and it's all this stuff. So it's very
It's
crazy.
for those who like Saw and like torture porn. Like,
yeah,
it's a good one.
That's definitely. I feel like Richard Laymon is the literary equivalent of that kind of school of filmmaking or book writing or whatever.
Yeah, but with more feelings.
But with more feelings, yeah, definitely. There's more, like we said before, there's more character development and more genuine care for the characters, if not any actual compassion for the characters.
Yeah, even though some of them are like douches, it is like, oh, you feel for them because he does write like backstory and stuff really well, or you just get an idea for like they feel like real people, which is good. Yeah.
Okay, so now I thought we could have a little chat about some of the criticisms that have been leveled at Richard Laymon over the time.
So I don't know too much about this part. I've not really read any of like the critiques on him. I've just read his books, so this one's mainly you're gonna have to inform me on this one.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. A lot of people, I think, have a problem with Richard Laymon's depiction of women, being mutilated and raped and murdered. And from the amount that I've read, I think he's got like however many we said before, like 60 books or whatever. And I think I've read like 10 or 12 or something, which is like quite a few books to read from the same author. Yeah. But obviously I've only dipped my toe into the full Richard Laymon experience. Yeah, the lore. Yeah, just from that, small exposure that I've had to his work, it's obvious that some of those criticisms are accurate, because the things that he does to his female characters are just, you can't go past them because it's all there on the page and it's all presented for entertainment, because he thinks it makes for a thrilling read, which it does, but it does for the wrong reasons, I'd say, which is, I think, what a lot of people would have a problem with it. And this is not a direct quote, but I do remember reading in an interview with Richard Laymon, he got quite testy about when someone asked him, about why he loves to, torture women so much. And his defense was that it's because that's the whole point of most violent crime in the real world, like the way he sees it. Basically, he was saying that in most books, say you have like a female character getting kidnapped or getting murdered or something like that, he kind of said that a lot of writers would probably skirt around the issue of rape or whatever because they don't want it to get into that territory, or they will make this big deal of it as if it's this aberration, like something out of the ordinary. But for Richard Laymon, it's like any man who ever kidnaps a woman or tries to kill a woman will invariably also rape her, or like at least think about it.
Most likely, probably true though.
Well, that's the thing, and that's why sometimes I think, I guess he's not he's not writing these things just to be a horrible person, although he is obviously
A horrible person.
he is obviously writing these things for entertainment. So, it's very pulpy, and it's supposed to be very exhilarating and exciting. I suppose it just offends a lot of people because it's...
I mean, the parts that I've read, I think I've read about probably like 4 or 5 books, so like way less than Joe. But what I don't think I've really read one properly where it's just totally a woman getting like tortured and raped. I think in Funhouse there is a bit of that creepiness, but majority of what I don't like, I don't like it. I don't mind about it, but it's still uncomfortable, is all the main characters are like guys in majority of them, and they're all either in like at least one section of a book, each book I've read, there's a position where the character can choose to be like pervy or not, and the character is always pervy.
Yeah, every time, always pervy.
Like they're all, and I was like reading it, I was like, oh, is this like, I hope real people aren't like this, because it's every book at least, and like the main character can be a really good person sometimes. Like sometimes they're all like douches like in the other ones, but I think the one I really liked, I think my favorite Richard Laymon book that I've read is Night in the Lonesome October.
Yeah.
Which is just about this guy who's broken up with his girlfriend and he's all sad and stuff, so he just decides to like walk around his neighborhood at like nighttime just because he can't really sleep and stuff. He witnesses wacky things or just weird stuff, creepy stuff that is never mentioned again, like weird clowns.
Yep.
Just stare at him and just like stuff. But then, and he's like presented as a pretty good, like a good guy, but then there's a bit where he just like pervs on a woman through like the window or something. I'm just like, why?
I know.
It's like, God damn it.
Every time you hope, you're like, maybe this is the one Richard Laymon male character who's not going to be creepy, and then you're just like, oh, nope, he is.
No. That, again, it wasn't the worst one. Like, some of the other ones have been pretty bad. And even, I think the Traveling Vampire show as well, like the main kid's like 14 or something.
Yeah.
Even he's creepy.
Yeah, he's kind of positioned to be this kind of, good character. He's like a 14-year-old boy, and he's always trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, he's in like love with this other, like, 14-year-old girl, I think. Like, it's presented that quite strongly, but then he, like, fantasizes about his, like, 25-year-old sister-in-law.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh,
I know.
why?
It's like, why, Laymon? Just give me one uncomplicated hero to root for.
Those are the parts that I'm just like, oh, like, I don't want to read that. I love all the murdery bits and, like, when, like, vampires are coming around killing peeps. And I don't mind scantily clad women, but I don't want to read from a 14-year-old's point of view, him fantasizing about, like, a 20-year-old.
Well, that's actually, speaking about Night in the Lonesome October, that's one of the things that I was kind of going to touch on as well. One of my favourite things about Richard Laymon is the way he fuses the highbrow and the lowbrow. Basically, what I mean by that is... I don't know what you mean. There's a lot of, like, intertextuality in his fiction. So, yeah, just to, like, make it even easier to understand. So, something like Night in the Lonesome October, for example, it's got all his usual trademarks, torture, graphic rape, murder, generally unsavoury characters. But inside that book, he's got references to Edgar Allan Poe, even in the title. The title, Night in the Lonesome October, is from Edgar Allan Poe poem, which is called Night in the Lonesome October, I think.
Poe poem.
Yeah, a Poe poem. Within that book, he also has references to Ray Bradbury, who's a kind of very whimsical science fiction. Science fiction. No. Science fiction fantasy writer who writes a lot of sort of whimsical, emotion-based storytelling. Yeah, the fact that sort of Laymon can jump between those sort of polar opposites of that kind of splatterpunk, torture porn type aesthetic, and then kind of have a few scenes that are sort of whimsical and Bradbury-esque.
Yeah, he is funny. Like, there are bits in his books where you just laugh because like, the dialogue is just so good. Like, there'll be interactions between characters, and that's what's really funny.
Exactly. And even within, you just touched on it before, but there's a few sort of David Lynchian moments where he's wandering around his town after dark, and he kind of, for whatever reason, he gets pulled into this world of, just breaking into people's houses while they're still inside, and just kind of...
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, that's kind of like a whole subplot.
That's right. Okay, he is also a burglar.
Yeah, well, he doesn't actually rob anyone,
steal
but
anything.
there's this mysterious woman that he sort of becomes infatuated with, who just wanders the streets, and she just
spends like a different night in each house, just without people knowing,
randomly finding out about people's lives, and it's just this weird kind of voyeurism thing. and that's where he meets the aforementioned clown, and lots of weird stuff happens to him. So there's just lots of strangely Lynchian moments where nothing is explained and it doesn't actually have anything to do with the plot.
I think that's my favourite part in that whole book is just whenever he does something different and he sees something weird, but it's only for like a couple of pages or something, and then it's never explained again. You're like, are they gonna ever talk about that creepy Bobo the clown dude again?
Yeah.
You're like, nah, he's a creepy clown dude, and then they just don't mention it, and that's all. I liked that. That was awesome.
His name was Sonny Boy.
Oh yeah, okay,
Sonny
no,
Boy.
Bobo, whatever, Gacy, whatever, whichever one it was. I don't know.
So that brings us up to my next topic question, which is going to be, is Laymon a misogynist? So we've kind of covered that topic already, but I think it's worth having another little look at. You mentioned before that every male character, when given the position to be pervy or not, always ends up being pervy. And I think that's an interesting point because throughout his books, he has so many strong female characters who are so independent and interesting and cool and funny, and they're never presented as like, oh, she's a woman and she's being funny. Oh, get back in the kitchen. Like
sandwich.
Yeah. Like they're genuinely, he's like, these people are real people and they have great stories to tell.
Yeah, some are just super badass.
Yeah, you haven't read Blood Games, have you?
No.
That was one of the other sort of first ones that I read of his, and it's just about these 4 women, and they go on this camping trip. Needless to say, one of them ends up getting murdered. So, yeah, that's the thing. Every female in his books is either going to be raped or be threatened with rape. But every man is shown as being capable of rape. So that's a cynical view of the male gender, but it's something he's not afraid to admit. However, as we said before, the torture and rape of women is presented as entertainment. So, he's not exactly a award-winning feminist or anything. There seems to be something to be said. It almost reminds me of the argument that a lot of people make about Quentin Tarantino, which is that Tarantino is unafraid to show extreme violence happening against women. And he's unafraid to, in The Hateful Eight, for example, there's a scene where Kurt Russell's character punches Jennifer Jason Leigh's character in the face. And it's presented as like a funny moment because she's this crazy criminal and he punches her in the face and it's really like shocking and violent. He's kind of, the way he films it is to kind of shock a laugh out of you. And a lot of people have sort of called that into question and said, well, that's just misogyny because he's, sort of allowing the audience a chance to laugh at a woman getting punched in the face.
I've never thought about that before, ever. Because I think, like, I'm going to laugh if a man did it. If it was a man getting punched, I'm going to laugh if it's a chick too. Like,
that's right.
I've never once thought, actually, that Quentin Tarantino was...
And I mean,
like that, because I think like tit for tat, like you're gonna strangle a dude, you're gonna strangle a woman as well in Inglourious Bastards. Like it's gonna happen.
Well, that's the other point that other like people have made for Tarantino is that he sort of clearly populates this world where women and men can be just as liable for the consequences of their actions. So a woman can get brutally murdered just like a man can get brutally murdered. But I think some people have had the problem that it has different connotations to it happening to a man. In Tarantino's case, he's not thinking about his audience, which is like the audience is out there and it's just going to be men laughing at a woman getting hit. It's time for quiz time with Joe and Soph. Okay, so today's quiz is going to involve the works of Richard Laymon, obviously, because that's our topic. So tell us how it's going to work, Soph.
Well, this was my idea, so I guess I will say it. This is what we're going to do. I was kind of both our ideas.
It was your idea.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it was. So I'll give you a Richard Laymon book, one that you haven't read, that you haven't read.
Okay.
And so I'll just give you the title and who it's by, Richard Laymon. And you'll have to guess the plot from that, and then I'll read the actual synopsis and see how close you were.
Okay, let's do it. Sounds like fun.
Yep, and then you'll do it to me.
Okay, yeah, cool. All right, got it.
All right, so do you want me to go first?
Yes, please.
Okay, so the first one is called The Woods Are Dark.
The Woods Are Dark.
What do you think that would be about?
The Woods Are Dark. Okay. It's a very typical Richard Laymon title. I'm going to say 5 teenagers go into the woods on a camping trip and discover a treasure chest filled with haunted pirate gold.
Oh yeah, I like that.
See, yeah, that's the thing that Richard Laymon does. Every now and then he'll throw in a little
pirate gold.
supernatural
Little
twist.
pirate gold.
Throw in a little pinch of pirate gold, and a little pinch of fairy dust, and away you go. So yeah, that's why I think to 5 teenagers, they go off, they find a treasure chest full of haunted pirate gold. They awaken haunted pirate ghosts, that are in turn haunted by their own internal demons. Double
Pirates.
demon. And the pirates are also rapists.
Oh yeah, yeah. You are correct. No. No. So this is the synopsis.
Yep.
The plot concerns 2 groups of people, a family and a pair of college students, who are kidnapped after stopping in a mall in California town and taken into the forest to be sacrificed to a group of mysterious creatures called Krulls, who roam the surrounding wilderness. The identity of the Krulls and their relationship to the town of Barlow are revealed gradually over the course of the novel. So you got the fact that there was woods.
And that they were dark.
and that they were woodlandy.
Woodlandy.
And the fact that there was some supernatural sort of force in there.
Yeah, there you go, see?
I don't know if there's 5 people in it, but it is 2 groups, so a family and a pair of college students. So is
okay.
that 2 or 4?
2.
Yeah,
A pair is 2.
No, yeah, but like a pair.
A pair of
like
college
a pair
students.
each, like a pair, like a couple. It's
Like a
2
pear,
2
like the
couples.
fruit.
Yeah, there's
Just a
fruit
pair.
students. Yeah.
Fruit students.
Yeah, so like a family and 2 people. So I don't know. That could be 5. I don't know.
That could be 5.
You might be right on that one too.
Well, fantastic. So I think, give me half a point for that one.
I'll give you none.
Okay.
I'll give you 1.
Oh, glad we talked about it.
1 point. 1 point.
Yay! Okay, Soph, have you read... Oh, God, I didn't write down the damn title.
You're a mofo.
Okay. The title of the book is Body Rides.
Body rides.
Body Rides.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm gonna say it is about some weird mythical... No, not mythical. I'm gonna say alien creature that landed on an asteroid on Earth, and someone came and saw it, and then it went in their mouth and took over their body, and then started vomiting in other people's mouths, and then other people got infected, and then more kind of, body snatcher kind of thing.
But with more vomiting
With
into
more
people's
vomiting.
mouths.
Yeah.
Yep, okay.
And then there's a group of rapists.
Vomit rapists.
There's a group of people trying to stop it.
What? What was any of that? Okay, so...
Asteroids, I think it's going to be about aliens
Yep.
on an asteroid, and then they come out and they start taking over people's bodies.
And for additional points, what do you think the main character's name is?
Dale.
Dale? That's actually pretty close. Alright, I'm about to read the real synopsis.
Okay.
Neil has been carrying a gun in his car lately, just to be safe. And it looks like it's a good thing he has. When he spots a woman tied naked to a tree, yep, and a man ready to kill her, he has no choice but to shoot the attacker. As a reward, the woman gives Neil something unimaginable. Neil's reward is a bracelet, a very special bracelet. It enables its wearer to step inside other people, to see through their eyes, to feel whatever they feel, to take body rides.
Stop saying it like that.
But Neil has a big problem. The man he shot isn't dead, and he wants revenge. First, he's going to finish what he started with the woman. Then he's going after Neil.
Okay.
And then he's going after Dale.
Yeah.
Take that, Dale.
Now, I took a risk going the old aliens.
Yeah.
I don't think Richard Laymon.
Well, but obviously
Right.
you should have gone with your first instinct because you said
Mis-
supernatural, mysterious thing, and obviously
I
it
wouldn't
is.
have guessed bracelet, no. I
I
wouldn't
know.
have guessed jewelry.
Mysterious snake bracelet.
Yeah.
Okay, do you have another one for me?
One more for you.
Okay.
And this one is called Among the Missing.
Among the Missing.
What do you think that one's about?
Okay. A woman named Sally Hawkins.
Oh, okay, very specific.
Yeah, goes missing from a small town in Illinois. And what's it called? Among the Missing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, she goes missing. She forgets her name. She forgets her identity.
Mm.
She wakes up and she's part of a traveling circus.
show.
Yeah. No, some kind of traveling freak circus.
Okay.
And she can't remember why, but she's missing an eye and 2 fingers. And
This is very specific.
she's this like weird sort of circus freak now.
Okay.
And then slowly her memories start to come back, and then she uses her crazy circus freak powers to get revenge on her sort of rapist ex-boyfriend who left her for dead and like gouged out her eye and cut off her fingers or whatever. So she's among the missing, and like all the circus people, they're all like missing as well. They're all like the cast-offs from society. And now she's one of them. Now she's among the missing. That's pretty cool.
Change the murder rape ex-boyfriend for like a murder rape ringmaster, and that's pretty cool.
Oh.
But no, it's wrong.
Wait, that's wrong? Oh.
I'm just saying that's good. That's a good book. I'd read that. But what it is the story begins with a man and woman visiting a section of the Silver River referred to as the Bend, apparently with the intention of engaging in a romantic tryst. The next day, the woman's decapitated body is discovered by a young couple.
I just realised I have read this one.
Well, how did you not know? I will continue for the audience.
I didn't finish it, but yeah, keep going.
Sheriff Rusty Hodges and his daughter-in-law, Deputy Mary Pack Hodges, are called in to investigate. The pursuit of the killer leads to a complicated series of events involving Merton, a homosexual drug dealer, who was seen running from the scene of the crime, and a dead woman's husband, and a revenge scheme involving two of the main characters.
Damn. Yeah, I do remember reading that. It was
thick.
Yeah, it had a very nice like small town feel to it, and the hero, the main character, was this guy named Rusty Hodges, and he was this like red-haired detective. But he was actually like quite a good guy, but I didn't actually finish it, so I don't know if he ever got pervy.
He perved someone.
He probably did it. He probably killed
daughter-in-law, definitely. That chicken pack.
Yeah, probably.
100%.
Okay, I've got another one for you.
I prefer the circus one.
Yeah.
I'd read that.
Yeah, me too. All right, what about this?
All right.
This one's called simply Savage.
Savage.
It actually has a subtitle, but I won't read it out because it basically is just a synopsis of the whole plot. So, go.
Cannibal hillbillies.
Correct.
In a small town in America, are kidnapping young girls and taking them to a cabin in the woods to flay them and eat them, and then Rusty Hodges, a local policeman, comes down and tries to save the day.
Okay, the full title is Savage, from Whitechapel to the Wild West on the track of Jack the Ripper.
What the Jack the Ripper?
Okay, so Savage, from Whitechapel to the Wild West on the track of Jack the Ripper, is a 1994 historical fiction horror novel by Richard Laymon. It begins with Jack the Ripper's final gruesome killing of Mary Jane Kelly, and a young boy who is concealed under the bed during the attack. The boy then tracks the killer to the New World, first to New York City and then to the American West.
Okay.
So I actually started reading that last year, and
stopped.
Stopped. It wasn't the best, but it was just written in a very... you can tell Richard Laymon had a lot of fun writing it, because it's written in like a very kind of almost Arthur Conan Doyle-esque kind of way, and that was one of the things about Richard Laymon's other writing, is he's always very playful with the way he writes. He likes to sort of play around with different styles of speech and language. So this was kind of a chance for him to write from like a British character's point of view. And he does it quite well. It's quite funny. But then obviously, eventually the book turns into a weird sort of Western.
I don't think I've ever read any one of his where it's not set in like modern day or like, like the 90s or 80s.
I don't think he has many. I think that might be the only one. I don't know.
I would not have thought Cowboys.
Although I think the Travelling Vampire Show might have been based in the...
Oh, yeah, I think
old days, like in the 50s or something.
The
old days, back in the day.
Yeah, 50s, I guess, okay.
Yeah, it was like, because it was that kind of boyhood tale of like probably based in his own childhood or whatever.
Yeah.
50s and 60s or whatever. But yeah, so that's it. So no one got any points for that. I mean, you initially gave me a pity point, but you can take away my pity point and throw that in the bin.
I'll wipe my butt with it.
Okay. Wipe your pity butt.
What?
So I think that's pretty much everything we need to say about on the subject of Richard Laymon. We went
Richard Laymon's...
I mean, let me grab my details out. We went through some of his classic books, some of the criticisms labelled against him.
My favourite being Nine Lives from October, and yours?
My favourite Richard Laymon book, I think, would be Funland. Yeah, Funland. It's just fun. You can't pass it up. It's good fun.
It's also a land.
Shall we walk the house?
Oh, no.
Okay, he's doing it again. We looked at some heavy-hitting topics like, is Richard Laymon a misogynist?
Yep, I'm going to go with no.
I'm also going to go with no, even though I think he could be a bit better.
I think himself, he's a bit creepy. Like, I think he kind of, like, wishes he was those characters perving on those people. Maybe not the rapes.
I think he just knows...
Like, that's the scariest thing would be for me, like, reading something, like, how disturbing could you make it? And I think that's the most disturbing I can think of, is, like, sexual rapey stuff.
Yeah. So you think that's him just going, oh,
like,
this is
what's
what's the creepiest thing I can do?
If I would think of, like, what can I write as gruesome? You think of all the murder stuff, but, like, people love Saw and think it's funny. So do I.
Yeah.
What's actually disturbing is, like, that stuff. So I think that's what he's thinking of.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he's just trying to sort of push the envelope and see what he can write and what he can get away with. And obviously he can get away with as much as he wants.
60 times.
Yeah, 60 times. The exact same thing, 60 times, but with the occasional magical bracelet and Rusty Hodges.
Yeah.
Rusty Hodges and the magic bracelet. Okay, so I think that's us for today.
Yeah.
So join us next time for when we'll be talking about some mystery topic. All right, we'll look forward to seeing you all then, and I hope you've enjoyed listening to this episode. I've been Joe Ramshaw.
Sophie Ramshaw.
And we bid you adieu. Mwah!
Ew.